Today we will review the Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification, which, effective October 18, 2020, is one of the General Land Office's required documents for voluntary buyout or acquisition programs. A hyperlink to the GLO's Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification can be found on the Texas General Land Office website at recovery.texas.gov. To locate the document, go to the local buyout and acquisition program page, which is linked below in the description section of this video. Scroll down to the left side checklist section under Applicant Information and click on the Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification link. Once you click on the link, your computer will download the fillable document. Please note you will need Microsoft Word to view and edit the document. It is important to identify potential applicants with hazardous materials on their buyout or acquisition properties as soon as possible in the program to be aware of any findings that may come up on the site-specific environmental review and to be conscious of the extra costs that the demolition will have in order to properly dispose of or mitigate the hazardous materials. The Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification is required to be completed by all applicants of the buyout or acquisition program, regardless of whether they believe to have hazardous materials on the property. For this video, I'll use an example of a fictional applicant and location to explain how to complete the Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification. The first section of the form is to complete applicant information. On the first row, the applicant should input the name and phone number of all owners or persons with interest in the property. Next, the applicant will complete the address of the buyout or acquisition property. Then, the applicant will input the address of the owner if it is different from the property that will be bought out or acquired. In our example, the applicant has the same home address, so they input NA, same address. On the following row, the applicant will input how long they've lived at their current address. In the following box, the owners will certify that they have used their due diligence to determine the presence or lack of contamination from toxic or hazardous substances. To complete the box, the applicant will input all of the owners' names. Then the applicant will fill in the county jurisdiction where the buyout or acquisition property is located. Then the applicant will input the state of Texas. Next, the applicant will answer the questions about potential hazards on the property to the best of their knowledge based off the due diligence they did to determine the answer. In number 1, the question asks, is this property currently, or was it previously, used for governmental, commercial, light industrial, or industrial activities? Certain types of governmental, commercial, light industrial, or industrial activities may lead to the presence of hazardous materials or waste, and further details and review may be needed to determine if there are hazardous materials present. The applicant should check yes, no, or unknown. If the answer is yes, the applicant should list the type and nature of activities. In number 2, the question asks, are there any above-ground storage tanks, underground storage tanks, or leaking underground storage tanks present on the property? Above ground storage tanks and underground storage tanks typically hold petroleum or other hazardous chemicals. Above ground storage tanks are not always above ground. Bunkered tanks are defined as a container constructed or placed in the ground by cutting the earth and recovering the container in a manner that breaks the surrounding natural grade or that lies above grade and is covered with earth, sand, gravel, asphalt, or other material. A bunkered tank is considered an above-ground storage container. The presence of these tanks on the buyout or acquisition property will necessitate additional environmental regulations and mitigation measures for demolition and must be identified on this form. In addition, the form specifically asks for leaking underground storage tanks, as these will require additional measures and cleanup. The applicant should check yes, no, or unknown. If the answer is yes, the applicant should list each type of tank, capacity, and condition. Number 3 asks, has there ever been, past or present, any generation, treatment, storage, disposal, release, or spill of petroleum products, solid or hazardous substances, and/or wastes? These include pesticides, herbicides, or rodenticides, other than normal quantities of household substances. The question is concerned about the past or present presence of hazardous chemicals through generation, treatment, storage, disposal, release, or spills. But please note that we are only concerned about quantities above normal household quantities. The applicant should check yes, no, or unknown. If the answer is yes, the applicant should list each type of activity, substance, and quantity allowed. Robert checked yes because he has a 60-gallon above-ground storage tank with petroleum on the property that, although is currently empty, did store petroleum in the past. However, his neighbor, Pam, only on occasion used pesticides on her lawn and kept a 5-gallon tank of gasoline for her lawnmower. So on her hazardous material disclosure form for her buyout application, she will mark no because these are normal quantities of household substances. In number 4, the applicant should answer, is there presently or has there been in the past a transportation facility on what is now your property? This includes parking lots, railroad yards, railroad, or roadway right-of-way. Past or present transportation infrastructure and facilities may indicate the possibility of hazardous materials on the property and should be noted. The applicant should check yes, no, or unknown. If the answer is yes, they should list the type of facility or activity. For our example, Robert's buyout property is along a major roadway, and there is a right-of-way on his property, so he marked yes. Number 5 asks, have you noticed any unusual odors or discoloration in your drinking water or anywhere on your property? Unusual odors or colors of drinking water or water in other areas of the property may indicate hazardous materials, and applicants should identify all odors or discoloration present in the water on the property. Robert checked no on this number. Even though there was petroleum on the property in the past, his drinking water tastes and smells fine, and he's never noticed any odors or discoloration of the pond on his property. Number 6 asks 2 questions. The first is there presently, or in the past, have there been any environmental investigations conducted by federal, state, local government agencies, or private firms? The second question asks, is there presently, or in the past, have there been any environmental or occupational safety and health administration citations or notices of violation? Applicants should check yes or no for these, and if the answer is yes to either of the questions, they should list the type of investigation or violation and the preparer or origin of the investigation or violation. Robert checked no for both of these examples because, to the best of his knowledge, there have never been any investigations or violations on the property. Number 7 asks, are there any drinking water wells or sewage septic tanks or systems on your property? The presence of drinking water wells and sewage septics may indicate additional mitigation measures and demolition measures that will need to be taken. The applicant should check yes or no. Robert checked yes because he had a septic tank on his property. The applicant should also answer if there are structures on the property that contain asbestos or lead, such as in the water well or septic tanks. Robert selected no because he is not aware that any of the structures contain asbestos or lead on his property. If either answer was yes, the applicant should explain, which as you can see, Robert did. Number 8 asks that if there are any other issues that are not covered, that those issues be identified in an attached sheet describing the issues. Applicants should identify all issues that may have led to the presence of hazardous materials on the property. The next section is an acknowledgement that the local buyout and acquisition program will relay on this form as fact, and that the property owners certify that the information is a full disclosure and that the owners have done their due diligence in obtaining relevant information. Warning: any person who knowingly makes a false claim of statement to HUD may be subject to civil or criminal penalties under 18 U.S.C. 287-1001 and 31 U.S.C. 3729. Finally, the homeowners should print their name, sign, and date the form acknowledging these certifications. If the form was prepared by someone other than the homeowner, they should also print, sign, and date. We hope you enjoyed this training on the Hazardous Material Disclosure Certification. If there are any additional questions during the completion of this form, subrecipients should reach out to their General Land Office grant manager. Additional videos covering the other required local buyout and acquisition forms are, or soon will be, available at the same location you are viewing this one.